This is the petrol electric MG3. Yes, the new generation version has stepped up its game. It's got more tech, more safety spec, still a petrol option, and this hybrid one available as well. There's a fair bit to like about this car and a lot to talk about as well. So please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get to it. Until recently, MG3 meant cheap but not necessarily cheerful, but now, well, it's still affordable, but the game has been stepped up by the Chinese brand this time around, with this new generation model having a lot more features and, well, a higher price point as well. But you are getting more for your money. Now, there are still two different grades available. The entry-level version is called the Excite, and it's available with the petrol engine or the hybrid powertrain. I'll tell you a bit more detail about both powertrains shortly. And then there's the higher grade version, this one here, which is called the Essence, and it also is available in petrol or petrol electric hybrid. Now, let's talk about what you're getting in that base model car. Halogen headlights, which I think is terrible in 2024. I thought we were past halogen lights on base model cars, but apparently not. Disappointing, I reckon. You get alloy wheels, but you do get LED daytime running lights, and while there is a push button start controller for the car, you don't get keyless entry, so you don't press the button on the door to unlock the doors. You have to actually press the button on the key. It's just a bit strange. Now, on the inside, you get a 10.25-inch touchscreen media system with sat-nav, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and that is your control center for a lot of the controls of this car. There's also a 7-inch digital instrument cluster for the driver. You get cloth trim and also a plastic steering wheel, so it's not necessarily as nice feeling as this car, which is the top spec one, as I said. It gets features like a sunroof, you get those LED lights at the front, thank goodness, and you also get the keyless entry system. And on the inside, it gets a different interior trim, as well as a leather steering wheel. And I reckon that it does have a fair bit more wow factor, this higher grade version. But let's talk about some alternatives which might stack up better for you. If you are after something that's small and very, very affordable and still very fuel efficient, you should go and check out the Kia Picanto. It's a very compact vehicle. It's not going to suit everyone's needs because of that, but it does have a few different versions available, including the pretty attractive looking GT line model, which I tested. And look, there's still a manual option available in that lineup as well, or an automatic if that's what you want. But like I said, not a hybrid, and hey, it might not necessarily suit your needs depending on your family situation, because it is very, very small, but it's a great runaround car, I reckon. Now, the obvious alternative to this car is the Toyota Yaris. It comes with a petrol electric hybrid version. It's not necessarily the most affordable hybrid car on the market. And look, most people who end up thinking about a Yaris typically go for a Yaris Cross, which is the SUV version. It's much more practical, and I would recommend it over the Yaris if you are after something that is practical and still hybrid powered. And hey, there's also the new Suzuki Swift, which comes with hybrid powertrain technology. I think it's a really good car for people who are looking for something that's compact and has electrification as part of the recipe. But tell me what you think in the comment section below. This is still a very small car, but it has, well, big design language at the front. I personally don't really like the front end design of this car. I think it's a bit too busy, but hey, I do think that it is a nicely proportioned car. It's about 4.1 meters in length. It has a longer wheelbase this time around than the previous one, which means the gap between those wheels is a little bit longer, and that means better space in the interior, hopefully, and I'll show you that in a sec. And also slightly better handling is the other upside of that. Now, it does have a pretty cute backside, I reckon. I think it's a pretty nice looking rear end, and it does have the Hybrid Plus badge on the back of this hybrid model. Now let's have a look in the boot, see what we're dealing with. No electric tailgate, if that really matters in a car this size, I don't know. You'll see the figure for the boot space on your screen now. That's a little bit less than the previous one, according to the numbers at least. And in terms of practicality, it might not be as ideal if you're choosing the hybrid, because there is no spare wheel in the hybrid model. Yeah, that's your 12-volt battery in there. So you get a can of goo, or a repair kit as we call it, and then you've also got a space saver spare wheel if you buy the petrol model. So I mean, it's not ideal, I guess, but you do still get an LED light in the boot, and you've also got a little shopping bag hook there, so you can put your bags on there and they won't lose all your items in the boot. What do you reckon? Good enough or not? What a massive interior improvement this is. This car has taken a huge step forward into a different realm, I reckon. There's lots of really nice touches to the interior finishing in here. And look, there's obviously lots more tech as well. This new steering wheel though, not so much. I think it's too big for the size of this car, and it means that it does feel like more of a handful to drive in some situations. My partner commented on that too. Now, there's also some weird controls here, right? So your steering wheel, that's cruise control. Because it has a traffic jam assistance feature as well. These take some learning, and these, well, that obviously is your volume control, right? Obviously. It does take some thinking if you haven't driven it very much, and until you have lived with it for a while, I'm sure it might take some learning. But hey, I also don't like that it's piano black, and just look how gross that looks. My fingers are pretty clean, hopefully, but they don't look it. Now, there's a 7-inch driver info screen up here. Now, you control that using some of the controls on the steering wheel as well, and it does take, again, some learning to figure out how you interact with the screen, because they've gone a bit more minimalist, and that's okay, but yeah, it's maybe a thing that you just need to spend some time on. Now, there's also this 10.25-inch touchscreen media system. It does have sat-nav, as I said, but what is a bit annoying about this car is that it doesn't have wireless Apple CarPlay. So you can't just connect up to your phone and drive anywhere you want. You have to plug in. There's a USB port down there and a USB-C there as well. And you've also got controls down below the screen for some of the controls. So yes, you can have it set on this home screen so you can adjust the climate and stuff like that by using the buttons on the screen. There is also a fan and temp control hotkey there, so you can quickly jump in there. I'll just turn that fan back down so it's off. Turn it off actually. And then there's also a couple of other buttons down here. So you've got a volume up and down button rather than a dial, which is a bit strange. And yes, it does take a little bit of learning, but I'm sure you will learn it. This little button here will get you into your car controls, and you do have a few different menus and stuff to play with there. So you might want to turn off the emergency lane keeping, you might want to turn off your speed limit warning system, and I do each time I drive the car. And look, it does take some learning. It's not the simplest thing to get your head around initially, and I guess that was one of the things about the previous generation version. It was very simple. It didn't have any of those annoying safety features, and according to some of the dealers that I've spoken to, that's actually one of the things that made it appeal to a lot of people. So, I wonder if this one will have as much appeal. Now, you've got a decent set of vents here. There's also vents up on the dashboard, and I do really like this finish that they've used on this high-grade version. And yes, there is still a little crosshatch finish here, which does mirror what you saw in the previous MG3, and you also get pretty nice seat trim here as well. This top spec version does feel pretty special. I wouldn't say that it's luxury, but it's, you know, at least better than base model, right? There are some things that do let it down a little bit though. There's no wireless phone charger. I don't love that. And you've got an adjustable cup holder section there. The plastics are all a bit hard when you get down to this level, right? And like this dial controller, it takes a little bit of learning, but I'm sure you'll get used to it. There's a drive mode selector there as well, and you've also got a little covered section here with a slider. That slider, yeah, it does sort of feel very scratchy, and down there you've got extra storage, as I said. And that covered center console bin at least has a nice soft finish on it. So look, front seat experience, all in all, is a big improvement on the previous version, but still, you do have to learn the way that you live with this car. So let's see if the back seat is livable or not. Excuse those bare knees, but hey, that gives you an idea of how much space I've got in front of my knees in this seating position. So this seat is set for me at 182 centimeters or 6 foot. Look, I've got room in front of my legs, and I've got plenty of foot room too. So it's a wiggleable space, if that makes any sense. Maybe I've been watching too many episodes of The Wiggles with my daughter. And look, the headspace is actually pretty good as well. Like I said, I'm a 6 footer, so it's okay. Just watch your head getting in and out. Now let me show you some of the other amenities in here. You do have a pair of map pockets on the seat backs. There's also a pair of directional vents here and a USB port as well. You've got bottle holders in the doors. There is no flip down armrest. And yes, as you can see, you can fit a child seat in there pretty comfortably with someone in front. So I was sitting in the front, in fact, and my daughter was in the back. She's 3 and she could just kick the seat ahead, but hey, I want her to be comfortable too. So look, I think that it's a pretty good space in here. You've got ISOFIX points in the window seats, obviously. You've also got 3 top tether points, and you could probably fit 3 adults across if you really needed to, because it's a pretty wide cabin and there's not much of a transmission tunnel intrusion to contend with. So hey, this is a very, very practical little car, I reckon. Maybe not the best for someone who's got 6'6" teenagers, but hey, it could work for you and yours. Let me know what you think in the comments. Under the bonnet of the MG3, you've got a choice of 2 different powertrain options. The entry-level one is a 1.5 litre 4-cylinder. It's not turbocharged, and it does have pretty modest power and torque outputs. In fact, a little bit less than the last version, even though it's a new engine. Comes with a CVT automatic transmission, so hopefully that helps it drive pretty nicely, and it's front-wheel drive. And then there's the Hybrid Plus version, this one here. Again, a 1.5 litre engine, and look, it has an electric motor and a battery pack, all combined up with a 3-speed automatic, which is a bit crazy, but it's got, well, almost double the amount of power compared to the entry-level petrol model, and it's only about 100 kilos more in terms of weight. And hey, speaking of weight, this car can tow 500 kilos. Woo! I guess you can take a box trailer to the tip then. That is a pedestrian warning system for the hybrid versions of this car. It's a little speaker outside the car that will warn people if you're coming. It's most noticeable in reverse, which is probably good because it should tell people in your vicinity that you are reversing, because otherwise it'll do it relatively quietly, silently almost. And it is a pretty quiet drive experience on the whole, this new MG3, with the hybrid at least. I haven't driven the petrol model, but it's a bit more like a Corolla hybrid in terms of the refinement levels on the inside. And I think that's a tick in the favor of this car. Now, what isn't a tick in the favor of this car is some of the beeping and bonging technology that you get that defaults on every single time you drive the car. Things like a speed sign recognition system, which, like I said, will beep and bong at you if it thinks that you are doing over what it thinks is the speed limit. Yes, there's also emergency lane keeping, which above 60 k's an hour or so can be a bit pushy. So yes, I've been turning that off as well. And I mean, it's not on its own in that sort of, well, frustration factor that you get with some of the new safety technologies in new generation cars. But I could totally understand if you, well, were very happy with your previous MG3 because it didn't have any of those interventional safety items. But let me tell you, that's just part of the equation when it comes to the drive experience here, because this hybrid powertrain is really, really quite nice. I know I said that it's got a 3-speed auto. You can barely tell that it's got an automatic transmission at all. It's very, very smooth in the way that it behaves itself, and the way that it switches between a hybrid drive mode and then just jumping to EV when you're on the regen braking or whatever it may be. It is very, very well sorted, very refined and smooth. Like, I keep coming back to those words because that's what it is. It's nice. Ran over a stick. All right, other elements of this drive experience which are nice is the amount of power that you get from this hybrid powertrain. And you know, I'm not saying that this is a hot hatch, but if you put your foot down, it really zooms. It is a quick car when you need it to be quick, and I'm sure that the petrol version of it isn't, because based on the power outputs, like I said, it's almost twice as powerful. So yeah, it's pretty impressive from that front. And it just has a really great usability to the way that this car can accelerate in different situations. So on the highway overtaking, no issue whatsoever. It really gets up and boogies. And at lower speeds, if you're just light on the throttle, it also has a really nice progression to the way that it accelerates. It's not necessarily lurchy or lungy or uncomfortable to drive in any particular way when it comes to the going and stopping of this car. And yeah, it's just really, really likable. And like, it gathers pace effortlessly. It is surprisingly nimble in the way that it responds, and zippy. Zippy is a nice word to describe this drive experience, I would say. And just like a lot of other electrified vehicles, it will drive in EV mode alone if you're light on the throttle, and if you do need to suddenly put your foot down a little bit more, you'll see the little light there change to HEV, and that means that it's running in a hybrid drive situation. So it is just, I mean, it's just surprised me, this car. I wasn't the sort of person who was overly glowing of the previous one. I didn't shit can it, but I didn't think that it was a great car to drive. Whereas this is verging on great to drive. All right, so what about other elements of the drive experience? Well, it is a pretty well sorted drive from the handling perspective. It does deal with bumps and lumps in the road surface quite well. In fact, I like the ride of this car. It has a nice feel to it on the road. And I mean, my biggest concern about the way that it handles itself or its road manners is actually the size of the steering wheel, because it's big and it makes for a bigger feeling drive experience than what the actual physical dimensions of this car suggest should be the case. So like, when you're turning a circle like this, I actually find, because the steering wheel is so big and you can't really set the seat right down low, I've actually bumped my knee a couple of times on the steering wheel, which I don't think I've ever had that problem before. So it's not a super involving car to drive, and like, you do get a little bit of resistance through the steering wheel, a tiny little bit of feel as a result of that, but it's not like a hot hatch to drive, so I maybe wouldn't come at it with that mindset. But I mean, from the power perspective, it almost is. So look, I would say that if you are considering this car as a city runaround, it's going to do that job beautifully for you if you can live with the safety technology. And then there's the braking as well. So there are a few different modes of the regen braking. It, for some reason, just keeps defaulting back to the middle mode. I like it on the more assertive mode, because then you're essentially going to be feeding more potentially lost energy back to your battery pack and being more efficient as a result of that. But no matter the mode, it does have a pretty well sorted regen braking system, and the brake pedal feel when you do need to press on the brake, well, it's got a little bit of an airy element to the top of the pedal, but that is a fairly common complaint when it comes to hybrid cars like this. It is far better than the MG3 that it replaces, and it's very, very good for this class. In fact, it could be one of the best drives in this class for someone who is just going to be doing this urban thing. So if that's you, put this on your shopping list and go test drive one, is my advice, because it's very, very good. But is it efficient? Let's talk about that now. All right, so let's talk about the petrol version first when it comes to the fuel efficiency numbers. You'll see the official combined cycle number for the 1.5 litre petrol version on your screen now. And yes, that's still pretty decent at 6 litres per 100 Ks. If you can achieve that on the daily, you'll be pretty happy, I would say. I haven't tested it, so I can't say whether that's accurate or not. But you'll see now the hybrid official number on your screen. So that's what you should be able to achieve across a mix of different driving scenarios. And if you're wondering what I've seen, you'll see the number on your screen now. And let me tell you, I am impressed by that. I think that this car really ticks the box for an urban driver or someone who's going to be commuting in and out of the city, as I've done in this car a couple of times. And I like it. I like it a lot, apart from the safety systems. If there was one thing that the MG3 really needed to improve, it was the safety credentials of this car. The previous one, not very safe at all. This one, much safer. It gets all the stuff you would expect in 2024, including autonomous emergency braking. There's also adaptive cruise control, there's blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, a lane keeping system, and emergency lane keeping, which is a bit annoying. And there's a few other features that I just like to turn off because they beep and bong at you, like the traffic sign recognition system. So those elements, like most other new cars, aren't integrated as well as they could be to make the drive experience enjoyable, but at least it's a safer drive experience now than it was before. And you also get a reversing camera and rear parking sensors on the entry-level version, and a surround view camera on the top spec model as well. And when it comes to airbag coverage, you've got 6 dual front, side, and full-length curtains. In Australia, MG offers a 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty, which is very, very good for the class. Now, there's also a 7-year warranty for the battery pack, but keep in mind that it doesn't have unlimited kilometres if you are going to use the vehicle for commercial purposes. So make sure you read the fine print. Now, there's also a 7-year roadside assistance plan and a 7-year capped price servicing plan as well. I'll put the servicing intervals for the models on your screen now, and also, because I'm thorough, I'm going to show you the pricing details for each of the different versions as well. Yeah, what do you reckon? It's a pretty good thing, this new generation MG3. Apart from some of those annoying safety systems which do ruin the drive a little bit, I do think that this is a vast improvement over the first version of the MG3. It's cheap, but this time it's cheerful, and I really like it for the most part. Tell me what you think in the comments section below. Would you choose this car? And if you are planning to buy one, what colour are you going to get? I'd love to hear from you, and if you've already liked and subscribed, thanks very much. I'll see you in the next one.